forget the use of the word daddy. I don't think I can get over the casting of Elliot Page as Achilles. This is the last picture show with Rahim Khan, and in the wake of the first full length trailer for Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, there's been a lot of online chatter about a number of creative decisions that Nolan has taken in his adaptation of Homer's epic poem. And while I think some are valid, some are unfair because the thing is, we haven't seen the movie, right? We are basing a lot of our judgment on a snippet of, sort of on barely like what, a minute of footage, a minute and a half of footage. But there are certain things that I am going to agree with when it comes to the naysayers, and other things that I think that, as they say, proof is in the pudding, right? We're going to have to wait until the movie actually comes out to see if these decisions by Nolan work. First of all, of course, this is his first attempt at fantasy so far. I mean, he's done science fiction, thrillers, dramas, but he's never tried his hand at fantasy. So it's new territory for him. Whether or not that means that the film itself is going to be good or bad is again premature. I mean, we cannot judge, without actually seeing the movie. Um, Another thing that I feel is something that I do disagree with. And that is, of course, the fact that this movie is entirely shot in IMAX. So, of course, they're using 70 millimeter um, film for this. And as we all know, uh, you know, him, Nolan, Tarantino, these guys are, if not, for example, purists, they're certainly revivalists. They're people who are going back to, the good old days of using actual film to record your movies. And I get it. It adds, I mean, we don't even need to get into the debate of sort of the quality or at least the difference between, using actual film as opposed to digital. That's for another day. But the reason why I am in agreement with people who have criticized this decision is that, let's be honest. I mean, for every, and this, of course, is not, I think, a statistic that you can sort of hold me to, but, just generally speaking, for every like 100 cinemas or something like that, are just regular ones. I mean, how many IMAX cinemas do you have? I mean, I think it's not even a fair ratio. It's not even like a 10-1 type thing. It's more maybe like even 20-1 or 30-1. So for a movie that is envisioned, shot entirely using a particular camera, and of course, then you get a particular aspect ratio and a particular presentation, of the full frame of what he has envisioned to appear on screen. Most of us, the majority of those of us who are going to go and watch this in the cinema, are going to be deprived of that because, and I can speak for my country here in Pakistan, I think we only have what, like two IMAX cinemas, as opposed to the 100 plus regular cinemas that we have. So short of me like driving 4 hours to another city to watch this movie, which very frankly I'm not going to. I'm not gonna have that IMAX experience. And I think that goes for a lot of people. Number one. Number two, it's not just the fact that there aren't enough IMAX cinemas. Most of the time the tickets are sold out. If I'm not mistaken, I think the IMAX tickets for a movie like Dune 3 have already sold out. A good, like what, 6 months, 8 months in advance. So what are you going to do? And I think they're now being sold on the black for, you know, 10 times they were what they were actually bought for. So I don't I completely disagree with this. I mean, cinema is meant to be accessible. Cinema, I can understand why you would make this decision. Then you also have to understand is that, you can be a bit of a snob about it, but then you also have to understand that, the infrastructure doesn't exist to support that snobbery. So, um, yeah, that's something that I think that has maybe been a poor decision on his part. Another one that I'm going to agree with the fans on is the use of this contemporary language. Now, I will admit, as you guys know, I don't watch trailers. I have, of course, seen stills of the movie, which, whatever, I mean, okay. But I mean, the use of not even patois, the use of contemporary English, specifically in two instances. One is, of course, when Robert Pattinson's character and Antonius is belittling Telemachus, played by Tom Holland, and he's like, "You're pining after a daddy who has abandoned you," or something like that. It's not verbatim, and he says something, "My dad." I'll put that here. I mean, because again, I didn't watch the trailer; I just read it. Now, dad. I must admit, it is somewhat jarring. Somewhat jarring. It is entirely jarring to hear. It's almost like it's almost like I think that attempt at one point in time to modernize the King James Bible, or to update it to use sort of more contemporary language, to be more demotic. Now, that was the Bible. I can understand. I mean, maybe you do definitely want more people reading, good book. And maybe the use of thou and thee and sheweth and all of that stuff is for the unlettered. I mean, sort of the unlettered, maybe for them it's like, it goes above their heads. But for those of us, you know, who are familiar, well, again, this is me. I'm digressing slightly. I'm not even. It's not. It's not even a case of familiarity. I don't know when this decision was made in Hollywood to have a British or neutral accent to fit in for most classical, and by classical I mean sort of Roman, Greek, um, even fantasy, I mean, Lord of the Rings, for example, or any such adaptation. I don't know when that decision was made, but it has become an almost sort of an industry standard where we have it being accepted in our sort of collective, I think, pop culture psyches that, you know, characters are going to be speaking with as I said, English or neutral accent, and the language is going to be, if not of the time, because again, you'd essentially be translating ancient Greek into English. What that would sound, what the syntax would be, I have no idea. But you would be speaking to a language that was more formal, number one, and would definitely not be the kind that, incorporated words like dad or cool or, Matt Damon saying, let's go. Now, it's a shame that a phrase like let's go has now been co opted by, you know, Gen Z or whatever. But I mean, in its construction, I think even in its use, I think even 40 years ago, if you were to say, let's go, maybe it wouldn't have that sort of rallying cry that it does now have. But I mean, it would work. Um, but on my legions or something like that. Maybe you would expect Matt Damon to be saying that. Uh, Now, is this an attempt by Nolan to update, to make it more palatable to modern audiences? I don't know. Because the thing is, these are just two lines from a movie that's going to be running like what, 2.5 hours or something. So I don't know. I can't say that this is what it's going to be like. Does it make it more accessible? Maybe to some, definitely not to me. Now, again, I can understand that, and this is when, for example, when the movie came out, not when stills came out for the movie. I think this was last year, and everyone jumped on the bandwagon and was saying, "Oh, this is historically accurate armor. It would need to be more, of course, bronze and all of that stuff, different style with the horns and the horse tails and that stuff, and kind of blocky, very close to what, for example, the Trojans wore in Troy." We all remember, for example, Brian Cox as Agamemnon. Um, God, and I'm forgetting the Irish actor's name. Brendan Gleeson as Menelaus. So we all remember that kind of armor. Achilles' armor was quite different, very close to what Matt Damon wears as Odysseus in this. But I mean, closer to what historically was accurate was that armor in Troy. Um, but then, of course, they were like, sort of whether it's an anachronism or not, it matters very little because again, this is an adaptation of sort of a poem that maybe at the time would have been considered to be true, but now, of course, we know for it to be a work of fiction, or at least heavily fictionalized. So there was that. Um, but then, and I have to say, for me at least, why it doesn't work is that it takes you out, it suspends whatever sort of make believe you have going on. Because again, and again, this is a very, it's just the use of a word. Now, would it have worked more if, for example, the character said, "Oh, you were pining after your father"? Now we've had, like you remember what's it called thing? I mean, sort of the very famous line delivered by, and it's also a great example, Gladiator. And I remember in an interview shortly thereafter with Russell Crowe, and they were like, sort of what cues did you have on the accent? He was like, sort of Shakespearean after, pints of beer, something along those lines. Um, and here's an Aussie again delivering a very sort of neutral accent. And that was, for the most part, I think everyone, I mean, Joaquin Phoenix accent kind of dipped and dived, but everybody else in that, um, what's it called? Richard Harris and oh God, what's that lady's name? Forgetting it. Most of these people they had neutral accent. The tone was largely formal. I remember, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife. You know, you're using those lines. Now imagine him saying dad to a murdered son. You know, would it have worked? I don't think so. We kind of have come to expect this. And when I say that, when did Hollywood adopt this? I mean, maybe this even goes back further, like the transatlantic accent. Now, no one in England, sorry, no one in America ever spoke with that, like, sort of, no, I mean, sort of state. I mean, you have your Delco accent and your Bostonian accents and southern accent in New Yorkers and stuff like that. The transatlantic accent wasn't sort of local to any place in America. It just came about because, again, you know, I think it was assumed at the time that the gold standard for accents was British one, and so they came up with this Americanized English accent, which is fantastic. I mean, sort of well through the 30s, 40s, 50s, you had actors speaking with it, and it's amazing. I mean, I think closest to that is like the one that you have from Frasier in Frasier Crane. And I think that's the closest that might come to a contemporary use of that accent. So maybe that as your baseline. Moving on, you wanted to have filmmakers not have audiences feel like these are American actors delivering these lines. Because, sure, in a case like Carlton Heston, both as Moses and Ben Hur, that man, I mean, remember him saying he would never pronounce it God, it was God. Uh, you know, as I think he was incapable of delivering like a neutral accent, so I think he gets a pass. But everyone else was just doing Yul Brenner as Ramses. Sure, he was European, um, but it was a neutral accent, so it worked then. Why is it not working now? Because everyone has criticized the fact that Robert Pattinson, is delivered a Brit, Tom Holland, a Brit. They've got like kind of American accents in the movie. Um, and I'm with them on this. It's just forget the historical accuracy part because if you're willing to let the uh, armor and the look of the time go for the sake of this movie, poetic license, then at least here too, I mean, yes, no, there are no Greek actors have been used in this movie. I don't think that there's anyone with even, sort of remotely Greek accents. So if you're willing to forgo that and the accuracy part, then at least let us assume a somewhat standard for these movies that there has to be a neutral accent, you know, and we're not going to go so far left that we're going to have American accents and contemporary language being used, but we're going to sort of maintain this sort of faux European accent with a somewhat formal tone and verbiage. I think I think that's fine. At least that's what I prefer. I can't imagine like in a movie like let's go back to what I was going to say Hercules with The Rock, but he sounds ridiculous even otherwise. So I don't think that's a very good example. Let's look at, and this is of course a movie closely tied to a film like uh, the Odyssey, because of course it deals with Odysseus returning to Ithaca, and this is of course The Return, starring Ralph Fiennes. Now, of course, he's a Shakespearean actor, worked on the stage, a very fine actor, and in that movie, let me just bring up the cast for that film. Uh, Besides, what's it called? Here we go. Yeah. So it has, of course, Juliette Binoche and Ray Fiennes. And this deals with the very end of Odysseus's journey, where he has returned to Ithaca. He is has not yet recognized because he's been away for 10 years, and this is him sort of trying to make his way back to his wife, and you know all of that. Who do we have in this? Juliette Binoche, Tom Rice Harry, Marvin Kanza, all blah 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 blah. Amir Wilson. Yeah, sure. So in this, of course, they've used the neutral accent. They've used, he stuck to his British accent, and it worked for me. Um, I'm really on the fence, and I have of course, no prejudice against, of course, the American accent. But using that in sort of this European setting, it's just like, for example, remember for the longest time how in a lot of these movies post World War II, a lot of the actors that would be cast, if they weren't necessarily German and they had that German accent, but they would cast like a Brit actor, and he would have stick to his British accent for Nazis. You know, it was just, I think, the nearest, like, sort of, or it was like the nearest proximate to a European accent, to use the English one. So, yeah, I'm not too keen on this, and I think that it's a bit of a misstep. But again, it is unfair to judge at this point when we've only heard two lines of the movie. There is more to come, so let's see what happens. Okay, now the other one that I'm going to, in part, agree and disagree with is the casting. First, let me speak of the main, of course, the lead role, and that is Matt Damon. I love Matt Damon. I think he is an accomplished actor enough in that in whichever role he may be, he always delivers. However, this is his second, almost third, what's it called, sort of fantasy medieval movie, because you had him in the Great Wall, in which you had, he goes all the way, yeah, that Chinese movie, and in that he's meant to be a European, he has the neutral accent or whatever Matt Damon can, come close to in delivering that neutral accent. There's that. Then he was in Ridley Scott's The Duel again. Um, the neutral accent and sort of there. And, now he is here in the lead role. Um, I didn't buy him in Great Wall. Didn't work for me in that role. He kind of worked for me in The Duel. As the lead, as Odysseus in the Odyssey, I don't know. I'm very 50-50 about it. I'm very much on the fence because to an extent I feel that even though he's easy on the eye and stuff like that, and he's done great in action roles. I mean, the Bourne movies, Green Zone, and all of these films. I just don't think he has the look. He doesn't look Grecian enough. Where, as I just mentioned, Rafe Fiennes uh, clearly does. You know, um, people will disagree with me. Maybe they don't think that even Ray Fiennes is Grecian enough. Maybe they could have gone with somebody like Oscar Isaac or something. Somebody who is more Mediterranean looking. Fair enough. But besides the look, I think there's something about Matt Damon in which even when he's miscast, he does very well. Remember that movie in which he plays that roughneck and he goes to France looking for his kid. I'm forgetting the name of that movie, but that was the most unconvincing Southerner I've ever seen in my life. I want to see. Wait a second, what that movie was. What was that film, and who was it directed by? I remember. Wait a second. The Last Duel. New. Come on. Filmography. Where is it? Hey, there you go. Contents. Blah blah blah. Eh? How have they not put up his filmography on Wikipedia? This is ridiculous. Wow. Somebody needs to edit this page ASAP. Oh, god damn it. It's not important. Forget it. I've wasted too much of your time trying to find that. Okay. But he plays somebody who is clearly like sort of white collar, redneck type guy, somewhere from the South. Sorry, not white. Yeah, white collar. White collar, blue collar, blue collar. Is what am I saying? Right. And, you know, he acted well, don't get me wrong, but it was extremely unconvincing. I wasn't convinced that this guy came from the South. I was just like, oh, this is just, uh, what's it called? Matt Damon on a bad day. Like he's let his beard grow, his patchy beard. And yeah, wasn't convinced by it. It's like, remember that one when we bought a zoo, the Cameron Crowe movie, whatever it was called? And he plays like a father, and, sorry, didn't buy him in that one either. Like, I don't think I could ever see this guy doing like a rom com. Has he ever done a rom com? Maybe he has. I don't know. If only the filmography was here, I'd be able to sort of go through it again. Um, Downsizing, did that count? No, I don't think that counts. Um, like, he was amazing in The Martian. It worked for me, but I don't know. I'm still on the fence on him as Odysseus. Let's watch the movie proper. Now let's go to the other casting that really has people up in arms. The first, of course, is Lupita Nyong'o, Zimbabwean actress, playing Helen of Troy. Now, again, this is a fantasy movie. You are not casting originally, like there have been many adaptations, of course, but you can go back to Troy 2004, and you had German actress Diane Kruger. I mean, this is the face that launched 1,000 ships, right? And I do not mean any offense to Lupita Nyong'o. I don't think she's pretty enough. Um, uh, I, I mean, there are Vanessa Williams, or, I'm thinking of other African American or black actresses, but whatever. But I don't think that's the point. It's not about whether she's pretty enough or not. It's her skin color is the question here. Not for me, but for those out there who are criticizing this casting. White boys in particular seem to be very riled that taking this exemplar of Western beauty and making her black is somewhat an affront and is DEI and all of that stuff, affirmative action, all of that bullshit. Forget it. On this part, fuck you guys. I don't, good they cast her. However, I think they could have cast a better actress, a better looking woman too. There are so many out there. But yeah, is she the face that launched 1,000 ships? Not quite. So there, I disagree with all the fanboys. But they did this. I'm so glad. Now, if this is true or not, I don't know if this is true. But apparently, they've cast. Wait, I have to get back to the. I have to. Is it true that they've cast Travis Scott as? Wait, yeah, Travis Scott. Apparently, Travis Scott is cast in the role of a poet. I'm forgetting the name of the character, but he's been cast as the poet in this movie, and he's apparently the one who sings, of course, is the bard in this case. Uh, I'm okay with this one because the thing is that Travis Scott showed his acting chops on Spike Lee's adaptation of Akira Kurosawa's movie Highs to Low, so he was pretty good in that. I'm okay with this. And the fact that, again, we're not talking about accuracy, but I mean, very good chance that a bard at the time could very well have been black because most of these people aren't white. I mean, even the Trojans weren't white; they were Mediterranean. You know, I mean, no, not the Trojans. Sorry, not the Trojans. The Greeks were, of course, Mediterranean. The Trojans were Turks. Sorry. I mean, they looked like that. So a bard on Ithaca being black, very, very okay, sure. I can accept that. Um, Anne Hathaway is Penelope, sure, like Anne Hathaway, no problem with her. And of course, she's worked with him on two projects before, Interstellar and The Dark Knight Returns. So cool, no problem there. Zendaya as Athena. Um, this has nothing to do with her ethnicity. I just don't like Zendaya. I've never liked her, in fact. Uh, I think he got like, the one for two deal, buy one, get one free with casting Tom Holland and then, getting Zendaya too. Or maybe not. But like, I just don't like her. I don't think that I've found anything in her that is appealing as an actress. Like I've yet to see her chops. Um, I really don't like her like in Dune or the Spider-Man movies. So forget even getting to the point of having a Hellenic god as a mixed race person. I just don't like the actress. Whatever. Okay. Uh, Yeah, this is one that wait. So we did some other ones. Um, Charlize Theron as Calypso, cool, okay. John Bernthal as Menelaus, sure, yeah, okay, I can see this one because in that you had Brendan Gleeson, um, and again, Menelaus is meant to be a real piece of work, so cool, and John Bernthal can really go there, so cool. Safdie as Agamemnon. Now he looks really cool in the armor. I don't know if he ever doffs his helmet. His helm. The look they've given him, he looks like a Praetorian guard in all black. He looks pretty good. But really like the Safdie brothers, and I know that Benny Safdie worked on Thing. What was it called? Oppenheimer. He's I guess an okay actor. He's good enough. Um, okay, I mean, sure, whatever. Doesn't really ruin my day or something. John Leguizamo as Eumaeus, Odysseus' faithful servant. Cool. Leguizamo's a good actor. Ramesh Patel as Eurylochus. No, Eurylochus. Odysseus' second in command. I like Himesh Patel. Whether or not you would have somebody from the subcontinent, like an Indian Sri Lankan sort of looking guy there at that time, it's possible, sure. But I like him. I liked him in what's it called? Thing Tenet. I liked him in Thing. What was it? Station 11. So I like this actor. Let him be there. Will Yun Lee as one of Odysseus' shipmates. I'm guessing this guy is Korean. That's interesting. Huh. Huh. I don't know what to make of that. Historically, I would say that would be completely inaccurate. But seeing as how that's not the kind of casting that he's going with, okay. Mia Goth as Melantho. I don't like Mia Goth too much. John Gonzalez as Cepheus. Okay, but the one that I did want to talk about, and I think I can end it on this note, is of course Elliot Page as Achilles. Now, we all remember Brad Pitt as Achilles from Troy. He looked the part, he embodied Achilles, putting on 20 pounds of muscle, growing out his hair. He looked fantastic. And if it is to be believed, when he appeared on set, I think Brian Cox said this. People were like, everyone was like, wow, he looks the part. And God, he did. And he really was fantastic as Achilles. Elliot Page, um, we're not even going to talk about sort of his transition and all of that stuff. He's just like a brawny looking kid, not very physically impressive. I would assume that sort of the greatest warrior that have the world has ever known, at least until that point, would at least be somewhat imposing. Elliot Page does not look the part. Uh, so yeah, on that thing, I'm going to sort of disagree with Nolan. One last thing before I end. Sean Bean played Odysseus in what's it called in Troy. Um, we all know that Odysseus is meant to be wily. Uh, Sean Bean kind of did that. And Sean Bean in the role. Do I like Matt Damon in the role? Well, all of this will be put to bed when we actually watch the movie. And I would like to see a lot of these people complaining, maybe myself included, um, shut up by watching the movie and saying, oh, wow, this is fantastic. But we will only know from July. So until then.